Evan Cole woke to the familiar screech of his alarm. Same sound, same morning. But today, the world felt wrong. The house was too quiet, too still. When Evan walked into the kitchen, his wife Mia froze eyes wide, terrified. "Who are you?" she whispered, stepping back as if he were a stranger who had just broken in. Evan smiled weakly. "Mia, it's me." But she grabbed her phone with trembling hands. "There's a man in my house," she told the operator, her voice shaking with fear. Confused and heartbroken, Evan ran outside, his mind racing. His neighbor, Mr. Henderson, the man who borrowed tools from him every weekend, looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Why are you on my property? Get out of here before I call the police." Each encounter was a fresh stab of confusion and dread. At the coffee shop, his best friend Liam, the man who was the best man at his wedding, walked right past him without even a flicker of recognition. He just brushed by, absorbed in his own world, a world that no longer included Evan. Desperate for a sliver of normalcy, he went to his office, the place he'd worked for 10 years. But his ID card didn't work. The light flashed red. Denied. Security guards, men he'd shared jokes with just yesterday, called him sir and shoved him forcefully out of the building. Everyone he ever loved, everyone he ever knew, looked at him like he had never existed, like he was a ghost intruding on their reality. By noon, he was convinced he was dreaming, trapped in some elaborate, cruel nightmare. He pinched himself, slapped his own face, but the cold, indifferent faces of strangers remained. By evening, as the sun began to set, casting long, lonely shadows across the city, he thought he was losing his mind. The line between reality and madness had blurred into an unrecognizable haze, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for what he saw when he finally, cautiously returned home. He crept back into the house, his own home, now a fortress of fear. On the mantelpiece was a family photo. Mia, their daughter, Gion. The beach. He remembered that day vividly, the salty air, June's laughter as she chased the waves. But his spot in the picture was gone, just empty sand where he once stood, his arm wrapped around his wife. He checked every photo in the house, the wedding album, vacations, birthdays, every single memory, every captured moment, had a hole where he should have been. It was as if AD been surgically removed from his own history. He fell to his knees, the polished wood floor cold against his skin. A sob escaped his lips, a raw, desperate sound. "Why is this happening?" he whispered into the empty room. That's when a voice answered from behind him, a voice as cold and empty as the space in the photographs. "You were supposed to disappear quietly." Evan spun around, his heart pounding against his ribs. A tall man dressed in a severe black suit stood in the hallway. His face was expressionless, a blank canvas, and his eyes glowed faintly, like distant fog lights in the deepening twilight. "You were not meant to stay," the stranger said, his tone utterly devoid of emotion. "You woke up in the wrong version of your life." Evan shook his head desperately, scrambling backward. "No, this is my home. This is my family." "No," the man replied calmly, taking a slow step forward. "Your world erased you this morning. A cosmic error was corrected. And in this world, you never existed at all." Evan looked down at his hands. They were turning translucent, flickering like smoke, the edges blurring into the background. He could see the floorboards through his own fingers. Panic, pure and undiluted, seized him. "Please, I don't want to disappear. Please, I have a daughter." "You have 1 minute," the man said, his voice flat, as if reading a schedule. "Try to remember something, anything, before you're gone." Hold on to a memory. It's your only anchor. Evan tried. He closed his eyes and fought to conjure an image, his wife's smile on their wedding day, June's tiny, chubby hands wrapped around his finger, the sound of his mother's voice singing him a lullaby. But the memories were like sand slipping through his fingers, fading, erasing. The images blurred, the sounds muffled, the feelings dissolved into nothingness. The more he tried to hold on, the faster they vanished. His last thought was a silent, desperate whisper that no one would ever hear. "I don't want to be forgotten." And then he dissolved into the air, silent, invisible, utterly and completely gone. The man in black walked over to the mantelpiece and picked up the family photo. It was perfect now, no gaps, no empty spaces. Just a mother and her daughter, smiling on a beautiful beach. No trace of the man who was never there. He placed the photo back down, adjusted it slightly, then stepped back into the shadows of the hallway and vanished into the night. And the world moved on. Mia tucked her daughter into bed, humming a tune she didn't know the origin of. Liam laughed with friends at the bar. The world kept spinning, bathed in the soft glow of the moon, never knowing it had forgotten someone who once existed, never knowing the gaping hole he left behind.